B'siyata d'shmaya, we're going to start learning Shabbos Daf Beis, the first daf in Masechtas Shabbos. Masechtas Shabbos starts with a Mishnah, Yitzios HaShabbos. Just a very short introduction, what we need to be able to understand the Mishnah. One of the Lamites Melachos that we're going to learn about later on in the Masechta is called Hoitzah Miroshus L'Roshus. Min HaTorah, there are two basic domains. There's one called Rishus HaYochid, a private domain, and one called Rishus HaRabim, a public domain. One of the Lamites Melachos, one of the seriously forbidden melachos that you're not allowed to do them on Shabbos, and if you do, they're punishable by death, is to carry from one domain to the next, either from a Rishus HaYochid into Rishus HaRabim, or from Rishus HaRabim into Rishus HaYochid. Now this could refer either to somebody who's standing in a Rishus HaRabim, and he, with his hands, he picks up something in the Rishus HaRabim and puts it into the Rishus HaYochid, or if he puts his hand into Rishus HaYochid and takes something out into the Rishus HaRabim. That's called Hoitzah, taking something out from Rishus HaYochid into Rishus HaRabim, or Hachnosa, taking something from Rishus HaRabim into Rishus HaYochid. And the same could apply to somebody who's standing inside the house, that he could take something with his hands, he'll take something from inside and do a hoitzah and take it out. Or he could do a hachnosa, he could put his hands out, reach out for something outside and bring it in. And in order not to get confused between constantly having to say the person inside, the person outside, Chazal had a very good idea how to take care of this. He said regularly, generally speaking, a Baal Habayis, a homeowner, maybe somebody who's more financially stable, he's inside the house. The person outside will often be a poor person going from door to door collecting food, collecting money. So when we're talking about somebody outside, we may well refer to him as an oni, and when we're talking about somebody inside the house, we may well refer to him as being the Baal Habayis. One of the conditions to have transgressed the Melacha of Hoitzah is that you've done three things. Akira, you've lifted something up, either from the Rishus HaRabim or the Rishus HaYochid. You've done the Hoitzah, the Ha'avora, the transformation from one Rishus to the other Rishus, and then Hanocha, you've put it down. In the absence of either an Akira, lifting up, or a hanocha, putting down, meleches hoitzah is not a typically, or not the way meleches hoitzah is regularly done, and therefore it may be asa to do part of the melacha and not do the whole melacha, as we're going to see. But to be chayiv misa for hoitzah is only if you have akira, ha'avara, which is transformation from one rishus to the next, either hachnosa or hoitzah, taking in or taking out, and then a hanocha. With that introduction in mind, let's start reading the Mishnah, and I'm not going to keep translating the same words, Akira, Hanocha, Rishus HaYochid, Rishus HaRabim. We all know what they mean now, and we'll understand what's going on here. Says the Mishnah, Yitzios HaShabbos Shtayim Shehin Arba Bifnim. The Bifnim is referring to the person inside the Baal Habayis. There's two, which is four. There's two ways that he could transgress the entire melacha of hoitzah with misa. As we said before, if he's either doing an akira inside, taking something out and doing a hanocha outside, or doing an akira outside, taking something in and doing the hanocha inside. Shehin arba. There's going to be another two cases that the person inside, the Baal Habayis, will also have done part of the Aveira of Hoitzah, but not the entire Aveira, and therefore he will be potter from the severe punishments, but it's still Osa. And similarly, Shtayim Shein Arba Bachutz, the Oni, the person standing in Rishus HaRabim, he's also got two ways of transgressing the entire Malach of Hoitzah, either Akira outside, a Hachnosa, Hanocha inside, or an akira inside, a hoitzah and a hanocha outside. That's the shtayim. Shehin arba, there's another two cases which are included in this Mishnah that the oni could be transgressing, even though he won't be transgressing the entire malacha, he will not be punished by death, but he will still have done an Issa D'Rabbanan. Ketzad, the Mishnah is going to give us now 8 examples, and we have to pay attention to the differences between the 8, and we'll understand exactly what's going on. The first one, Ha'oni oimid bachutz, ubalabayis bifnim. That's an introduction to all of them, as we said before. The oni is somebody standing outside in the Rishus HaRabim. The balabayis is the one who's inside in the Rishus HaYochid. Case number 1, Poshat ha'oni es yodoi lifnim. The oni is standing outside. He puts his hand inside the Rishus HaYochid. V'nosan l'toich yodoi shel balabayis. Which means this poor person, he has a basket in his hand. He hopes the balabais is going to put some food in it. He lifts up the basket outside. He puts the basket into the Rishus HaYochid and puts it down into the hands of the balabais. Which means that the oni has done an akira, a hachnosa, and a hanocha. Oy shenotal mitoicha v'hoitzi ha'oni. Or if the poor man takes his empty hand into the Rishus HaYochid and he lifts something off the hands of the balabais, doing an akira, taking whatever the balabais gave him, taking it out, doing a hoitzah, and then putting it down in the Rishus HaRabim, a hanocha, v'hoitzi ha'oni. In that case, v'hoitzi takes out ha'oni chayev. The oni has done an akira, a hachnosa or hoitzah, and a hanocha. The oni is chayev, is going to be chayev for the entire melacha of hoitzah. Ubalabais potter. The balabais didn't do anything. Either the oni took his basket and put it down in the balabais' hands. It may not be so kind of the balabais to be there to receive the basket from the poor person, because now this poor person is going to be chayev misa, or he may be chayev misa if there were 2 witnesses, etc. But he's clearly done a very serious avera. But the balabais himself has not taken part in any of the 3 parts of the melacha. He's not done an akira, not done any ha'avara, nor has he done a hanocha. And therefore he's completely potter. He's done nothing. Case number 3. Poshat balabais es yodoi lechutz v'nosan letoich yodoi shel oni. The balabais takes some food, lifts it up in the Rishus HaYochid, puts his hand outside, does a hoitzah, puts it down into the hands of the oni. He's done an akira and a hanocha and a hoitzah. He's done the full melacha. Oy shenotal mitoicha v'hichnis. Or if the balabais put his empty hand out, took the basket off the hands of the oni, doing an akira, bringing it into his home, doing a hachnosa, putting it down, doing a hanocha, he's done an entire melacha. In that case, balabais chayev, the balabais has done the entire melacha of hoitzah, v'oni potter. And the oni is completely potter because the oni did not do an akira, nor a hanocha. Those are the first 4 cases. The first 2 are applied to the oni, who does the entire melacha, either hachnosa or hoitzah. The second 2 is referring to the balabais, who does the entire melacha, either hoitzah or hachnosa. Case number 5. And the next 4 cases in the Mishnah are where they're both going to do part of the melacha, either an akira or the hanocha, and either one of them is going to each time either do the hachnosa or the hoitzah. Let's see inside. Poshat he'oni es yodoi lifnim. If the poor person lifts up his basket in the Rishus HaRabim, he does the knisa, but he does not put it down. He does not do the hanocha. V'not al balabais mitoicha. The balabais takes the basket out of the oni's hands. So the poor person, the oni, has done an akira, a hachnosa, and the balabais did the hanocha. Oy shenosan l'toicha v'hoitzi. Or in a case where the balabais did the akira, he lifted up the food and gave it to the oni. The oni did the hoitzah, took it out, and the hanocha and put it down. In both those cases, shneim pturim. They've both done something wrong, but they're both potter because neither of them did an entire melacha. In case number 5, in the first of these last 2 we just learned, the poor person is the one that did the akira and the hachnosa and the balabayis did the hanocha, and in the second case, the balabayis did the akira and the oni did the hoitzah and the hanocha. Continues the Mishnah, case number 7. Pashad balabayis es yodoi lechutz v'notal he'oni mitoicha. The balabayis did the akira, he lifted out the bread. Lifted up the bread in his Rishus HaYochid. He put his hand out into the Rishus HaRabim. He did a hoitzah, but he did not put it down, he did not do a hanocha. The oni, nota le'oni mitoicha, the poor person took the food out of the balabayis' hand, the poor person did the hanocha. Oi, the last case in the Mishnah, shenosan letoicha, if the poor person lifted up his basket and put it into the balabayis' hand, the balabayis' hand was stretched out into the Rishus HaRabim, and now vehichnis, the balabayis does the hachnosa and the hanocha, he puts it down in the Rishus HaRabim. In that case, again, shneim p'turim, because each one only did half the melacha. So that's what we saw in the Mishnah. And in these last 4 cases, it was always the balabayis or the oni. Each one did either akira or hanocha, and any one of them did either the hachnosa or the hoitzah. Says the Gemara, Tanan Hasam, we learnt in a Mishnah in Masechas Shavuos, Shvuos Shtaim Shein Arba. In the parasha of making a shvua, which is you're not allowed to make a promise, not allowed to swear, make a vow, a shvua, there are 2 which are 4. And we don't want to get carried away with the fine details of these halachas, they don't belong here, but in the halachas of shvua, the pasuk says lahora or lehetiv. You can make a shvua about something you did or something you didn't do, and either of those could be either in the past or in the future. I ate, I didn't eat. I will eat, I won't eat. If somebody makes a shvua in any of those, then the halachas of shvua could apply and do apply. So the shtayim, the main 2, are in the future. Lahora or lehetiv, in the future. I will eat, I won't eat. Shein arba, we learn from psukim that even in the past tense, I ate or I didn't eat, also that's the shein arba, they are also apply the halachas of shvua. Yediyos hatuma shtayim shein arba. There's a halacha that if somebody is tomei, there's 2 things min haTorah he's not allowed to do. Number 1, he's not allowed to eat hekdesh, korbanos. Number 2, he's not allowed to go into the Beis Hamikdash. And if somebody transgresses that, then he's got to bring a korban oile v'yered, which means it's a korban that, depending on your financial means, as to whether you have to bring an animal or a bird or just a mincha. Korban oile v'yered. In order to be chayav a korban oile v'yered, the halacha is you have to have known that you were tomei, then you have to have forgotten, and then you have to again, after you transgressed this, b'sheigeg, you realized that you either went into the Beis Hamikdash or you ate hekdesh, and you now became aware of it. Then you bring a korban oile v'yered. So yediyos hatuma shtayim shein arba. The shtayim means that if he forgot, whilst he was doing the avera, he forgot that he was tomei, and therefore, thinking that he was tohir, he either went into the Beis Hamikdash or ate hekdesh. That's the shtayim. Shein arba is when he didn't forget that he was tomei, but he forgot the halachas of hekdesh. He didn't realize this was hekdesh. He didn't realize he was going into the Beis Hamikdash. He didn't realize that the meat he was eating or touching was hekdesh. That's shein arba. That there too the halachas of tuma apply. Marois negoim. In Tzoras also we know the pasuk explicitly speaks about 2 main colors of boils that have the halachas of Tzoras, and they are the se'es and the baheres. And then the pasuk says there's a sapachas, there's other types of colors that are similar, that are annexed to the main ones. That's the shein arba, and there's 2 other colors that are off-white of the original 2 of the se'es and the baheres. That's shtayim shein arba with the maris negoim, the colors of the Tzoras. Yitzios HaShabbos, this is the important bit, that the Mishnah there brings another example of Shtayim Shein Arba, which is Yitzios HaShabbos. Our Mishnah, Shtayim Shein Arba. And there it just says Shtayim Shein Arba. There's two which are four. Ask the Gemara, Ma'ishna hocha detoni Shtayim Shein Arba bifnim or Shtayim Shein Arba bachutz. In our Mishnah, the Mishnah elaborates that there's the Oni, there's the Oshir. The Oni can do Shtayim, he can do the whole Malacha in two ways, either by taking in or by taking out. The Oni can do the whole Malacha in two ways, and Shein Arba, there's an extra four cases at the end of the Mishnah. But the Mishnah there just refers to the halachas of Yitzhak Shabbos with Shtayim Shein Arba. It altogether only has four, and it says there's two which is four. Which two, which four? How is the Mishnah there working? How is the Mishnah here working? And what's the difference between them? Says the Gemara, Hacha de Iker Shabbosu, Mesechtas Shabbos. This is the main place where these melachas belong, these halachas belong. In Shavuos, it's just brought because it says that the Shavuos, the Shtayim Shein Arba, it brings a few other examples of Shtayim Shein Arba. But over here, this is the Masechta where Hoitzah of Shabbos ought to be discussed. Since this is where it belongs, Toni Ovois v'Toni Toildois. The Ovois is taking out from a Rishus Hayochid into Rishus Harabim. The Toildois is taking in from the Rishus Harabim into Rishus Hayochid. Hosam, over there where it's not the Ikar of the main place for these halachas, Delav Ikar Shabbosu, Ovois Toni, Toildois Loi Toni. Over there only speaks about the Ovois, only speaks about taking out and totally ignores the bringing in. So how would we learn the Mishnah over there in Shavuos? What's the Shtayim Shein Arba? So the Shtayim are the two ways that one can transgress the entire Malacha of Yitzhak just with taking out. How do you do that? Akira, Hoitzah and Hanocha. The Shtayim there, one of the Balabais, one of the Oni. You could either be inside and do a complete Hoitzah, or you can be outside and do a complete Hoitzah. That's the Shtayim. What's the Shein Arba? There's another two cases which is only Yitzios. What does that mean? What cases could we be talking about that there's only Yitzios? The Gemara is going to ask that in a minute. Let's see the Gemara inside. Ovois ma'nihu Yitzios. We just said now that Ovois is the only Yitzios. V'Yitzios Trei Havyon. The Yitzios, we know there's two. One for the Oni, one for the Balabais. And the Gemara means to ask that if you're only talking about Yitzios, because the Mishnah in Shavuos is only talking about the Ovois, which is Yitzios, then Trein Hava, you don't have more than two. What's the Shein Arba? Says the Gemara, V'chitema mehen lechiyuv or mehen leptur. Are you going to say that the Shtayim is where there's going to be a proper chiyuv, where each one does a full yitzia, a full hoitzah, taking out, and Shein Arba is another two, which are also hoitzahs, but there it's a ptur, it's not the whole malacha. And here Rashi tells us Yesod that doing the akira, the lifting up, which is the beginning of the malacha and potentially could bring you to doing the end of the malacha, is much more serious than doing a hanocha. So here the Gemara is suggesting that Shtayim Shein Arba is two Yitzios, which are complete malachis, as we said, one of the Oni, one of the Balabais. Shein Arba, and the cases of Ptur, which are only Yitzios dik, they're only referring to taking out, and only Akiros, they can only be the Balabais. Either the Balabais does the Akira, which then the Oni does the Hoitzah and the Hanocha, but the Balabais did the Akira, or the Balabais did the Akira and the Hoitzah, and the Oni did the Hanocha. So those are two cases where you've got an Akira, which is going to contribute to a Yitzia, both the Balabais, and that's the Shein Arba, that's the extra two cases in the Mishnah in Shavuos. That's what the Gemara is suggesting here. Says the Gemara, that would be very difficult to understand. V'hadumya demaris negoim ktani. The Mishnah there in Shavuos brings a whole list. And regarding Maris Negoim, nobody argues, everyone agrees that all four of the colors of Tzoras are all chayav, they have the same halachas. Ma hosam kurhu l'chiyuva, the shtaim shein arba of Negoim is definitely l'chiyuv, it's not two are deraisa, two are derabanan, they're all equally stringent. Af hochanami kuru l'chiyuva. We can comfortably assume that the shtaim shein arba regarding Yetzios HaShabbos in the Mishnah in Shavuos must be that there's a proper chiyuv on all shtaim shein arba. Where do you have shtaim shein arba if you're only talking about Ovos, if you're only talking about Yetzios? Elo Omar Rav Papa. Rav Papa says as follows: Hacha de Iker Shabbos hu. Over here in our Mishnah, which is the main place of the Helchas Haitzah, Toni Chiyuva Upturi. Our Mishnah, as we saw, has 4 cases that are completely chayiv, and then 4 cases which are potter. Hasam, but over there in the Mishnah in Shavuos, the Lav Iker Shabbos hu, it's not the place for the halachas of Shabbos. Chiyuva Toni Upturei Loi Toni. It mentions the Shtaim Shein Arba completely chayiv. The Gemara assumes that the Mishnah that's speaking about Chiyuva, the Mishnah in Shavuos is only Chiyuva. What's Chiyuva? Chiyuva Ma'inihu Yetzios. We assume that it means Yetzios, only taking out is Yetzios. Like it says in the Mishnah, Yetzios HaShabbos. Says the Gemara, Yetzios Tarta Havyon. There's only 2 Yetzios that you have completely Chiyuv. Either the Balabayis takes out, or the Oni takes out. Says the Gemara, no. Shtaim d'hoitzah u'shtaim d'achnosa. Do you know what Yetzios means? Doing a full transferring from one domain to the next is called a Yetzia. That includes the bringing in as well as taking out. So when it says shtaim, it means shtaim that are taking out, and shein arba, which are bringing in. So the 2 that are taking out is if either the Oni or the Balabayis do the entire Melacha, but taking something from the Rishus HaYochid to the Rishus HaRabim. Shein Arba is where you've got either the Oni or the Balabayis doing the complete Melacha of taking in from the Rishus HaRabim into Rishus HaYochid. And in that case you have 4 cases, which happen to be the first 4 cases in our Mishnah, which are the Shtaim Shein Arba in the Mishnah in Shavuos. Asks the Gemara, Yetzios Ktani. The Mishnah says that Yetzios HaShabbos Shtaim Shein Arba, and Yetzios is literally translated as taking out. Amar Vashi, Tana Hachnosa Nami Hoitzah Korile. The Tana of the Mishnah calls bringing in also as a Hoitzah, because you're taking it out of one domain and bringing it into another domain. Mimai. How can you prove that the word Yetzios in the Mishnah also means bringing in? Miditnan, since we learnt in the Mishnah, a Mishnah later on in Masechas Shabbos, Hamoitzi Mirshus L'Rshus Chayev. It's one of the melachos are that if you are moitzi, if you take out from one domain to the next, you're chayev. Milay oskin on the kama ayil mershus harabim l'rshus hayochid. We're talking about also bringing in from Rishus HaRabim to Rishus HaYochid, and the Mishnah calls it Hoitzah. So you can see that the Mishnah does not have a problem calling a bringing in with the term Hoitzah. Why should it be that way, that the Malacha of Hoitzah includes bringing in? Says the Gemara, Kol akiras chayfetz mimakoymoi, uprooting anything, any object from one domain and bringing it into another domain. Tana Hoitzah Korile, the Tana calls that Hoitzah. You're taking it out of where it was, out of its original domain, into another domain. Omar Vina Masnisa Namidaika, our Mishnah we just learnt on Amud Aleph, it also seems to be going that way. Diktoni Yetzios, our Mishnah starts with Yetzios HaShabbos Shtayim Shein Arba, and start reading the Mishnah. V'kom Mefarish Hachnosa Le'alta. The first thing the Mishnah says is talking about taking an object that was outside and bringing it in. So you see that the words Yetzios include Shema Mina, include bringing in as well. Rava Omer, and also to explain the Mishnah in Shavuos, how do you have a Shtayim Shein Arba? Rav explains it a bit differently to Rav Papa. Rav Papa said Shtayim is the hoitzois, the taking out, shehin arba, which includes the bringing in. Rav says no. Reshuyos katoni, Reshuyos Shabbos Shtayim. So what Rav is just saying is Shtayim. It doesn't mean that we're splitting up the taking out from the taking in. The Shtayim is the taking out, shehin arba, which is another two to taking in. No, Shtayim, there are two domains. Min HaTorah, there's Reshus HaYochid and Reshus HaRabim. Shehin arba, consequent to the fact that there's two domains, there are four ways that one can transgress the Issa of Heitzah. Either the Oni or the Balabais, either Hachnosa or Heitzah. That's how the Gemara now has explained the Mishnah in Shavuos. Now the Gemara has hardly made mention of how to understand our Mishnah. What's the Shtayim Shein Arba? How does that work? So we had one nusach that the Gemara said before, that because the place to discuss these halachos is in Masechas Shabbos, that's why our Mishnah has ovois as well as toldos. And then we had another nusach later that Rav Papa said that our Mishnah has also chiyuvim, also pturim. But it seems to be very, very clear across the board in Rashi that the way they explained our Mishnah, so in the Havamin of the Gemara, where we said that the Mishnah in Shavuos is only talking about ovois, only yetzios, and our Mishnah is ovois and toldos, which means yetzios and hachnosos. So our Mishnah would go as follows: this Shtayim Shein Arba Bifnim, which means that the Balabais who's inside, he's got two ways of transgressing the entire Heitzah, because don't forget in our Mishnah, you've got Ovois and Toldos, Yetzia and Hachnosa. The Balabais has two ways of doing that. Either doing an entire Knisa, an entire Hachnosa, including Akira and Hanocha, or an entire Heitzah, including an Akira and Hanocha. That's the Shtayim. What's the Shein Arba? Is that for the Balabais, there's another two Pturim, another two ways of transgressing half the Malacha, and they are an Akira of the Balabais. As Rashi says, in the whole Sugya, we always focus on the Akira. The Balabais does an Akira, and he can either do an Akira and let the Oni do the Hoitzah and the Hanocha, or he can do the Akira and the Hoitzah and let the Oni do the Hanocha. In either case, the Balabais has done an Akira that potentially was going to do the Issa of Hoitzah, and that's the Shein Arba of the Balabais. Two Akiros, two options of an Akira of the Balabais, either with or without the Hoitzah. And the Shtayim Shein Arba Bachutz is similar as regarding to the Oni. The Oni's got two ways of doing the entire Issa, and don't forget, since we're talking about Maseches Shabbos, then the Gemara says it's Ovis and Toldois, so which means Yetzios and Knisois. The Oni can do the whole Malacha, either a Knisa or a Yetzia. Either he does an Akira, a Hachnosa and a Hanocha, or an Akira, Heitzah and Hanocha. Shein Arba is two Akiros of the Oni, either just an Akira where the Balabais does the Knisa and the Hanocha, or the Oni does an Akira and a Knisa and the Balabais does the Hanocha. In both cases, the Oni has done an Akira, and that's the Shein Arba of the Oni. That's as far as the Gemara that says that our Mishnah is Ovois and Toldos. Now moving over to Rav Papa and Rava, the truth is they learn our Mishnah in exactly the same way. That however you learn the Shtayim, which is two Reshuyos according to Rava, or according to Rav Papa, it's just the two Chiyuvim doing the entire Melachos as we explained. The Shein Arba of Rav Papa and the Shein Arba according to Rava are the same as in the first explanation that we just explained in the Gemara, that the Shein Arba Mibifnim is the two Akiros of the Balabais, either with or without the Hoitzah, and the Shein Arba Mibachutz of the Oni is the two Akiros of the Oni, with or without the Hachnosa. So according to everybody, the explanation of what the Shtayim Shein Arba in our Mishnah are is clear, and the whole discussion is just how to understand the Mishnah in Shavuos. So we've clearly explained our Gemara according to Rashi. There are many other explanations in the Rishonim, but we want to keep it simple and uniform, so we're going to continue working with the theme of Rashi and Rashi only. In Yirtzeh Hashem, in our next year, we're going to continue the sugya from here.